Jim Keady is a New Jersey native. As an educator, activist, filmmaker, athlete, coach, politician, and grassroots warrior for the common good, Jim has spent decades fighting for social, economic, racial, environmental, and political justice. Today, he is here to shape what it means to be unapologetically bold and progressive and make your mark on the world. Please join me in welcoming Jim Keady to the stage.
How we doing, MARK Conference? Always tough to follow a circus act, right? Okay, so my name is Jim Keady. I am here to talk to you today about being unapologetically bold and progressive. If we are going to talk about being unapologetically bold and progressive, let's define the terms. Unapologetically, in a manner that does not acknowledge or express regret. Bold. A person showing an ability to take risks, confident, courageous, daring, intrepid, courageous, brave, valiant, fearless, unafraid, undaunted, dauntless, valorous. Progressive. A person favoring or implementing social reform or new liberal ideas, favoring or promoting change or innovation. Modern, liberal, advanced, forward-thinking, forward-looking, go-ahead, enlightened, enterprising, innovative, up-and-coming, new, dynamic, avant-garde, modernistic, and disruptive. I stand here before you today saying I am unapologetically bold and progressive, and it is what we need in these United States in this very moment. I wish I could tell you that I was always unapologetically bold and progressive when I'm wearing my plaid overalls, shouting at the world. But the reality is, from when I was a young boy here all the way up to when I was your age in college, I inherited some things that I did not earn. I'm a straight, white, cisgendered, able-bodied male who's from the middle class. When I was at St. Joseph's University, about an hour down the turnpike in Philadelphia, I was a Division I varsity athlete, was a fraternity president, was a good student. In having all of those things in that package, I was given advantages by the systems that I did not earn, despite the fact that I worked hard at things that I was good at. I didn't earn all of those things. I was unapologetically bold when I was on the soccer field. I was unapologetically bold when I was doing work at my fraternity. The progressive part took me a little while to get to, because in the background that I had and this package I was born into, I didn't need to change the status quo. It was good for a straight, white, cisgendered, able-bodied male from the middle class with a college degree who played sports and had the fraternity connections. So what happened? I had experiences that put me in touch with the poor, the marginalized, the voiceless. I had those throughout my life growing up, doing volunteer work where you get a touch here and there, but it really changed for me after I finished my undergraduate degree. And I took off and I backpacked around the world. And I did volunteer work with Mother Teresa's sisters in Central Asia and in Eastern Europe. And I took everything, left everything rather at home, and just threw a backpack on. Went into the jungles, went into the slums, went into the mountains, saw the poverty that I had never seen before growing up here on the beach in Belmar in New Jersey. And it transformed my life. And when I came back from that trip, I started doing hard social analysis. What were the systems that were in place that were maintaining the unjust status quo that I saw as I traveled, and then became aware of much more so when I came back to the United States? Why was it that everyone who seemed to be in power, whether in government or in business or any other organization, looked like me? Why weren't there more women in places of power? Why weren't there more people of color in places of power? It isn't because you're not working hard, you actually work harder. God help the white guys that have to work as hard as women and people of color to get ahead in the world. And as I began to align with a new way of thinking, I had to make choices. And we have to make choices. When it's a question of putting profits ahead of people, what side do we stand on? When it's a question of putting our personal security, maybe keeping a job, over standing in solidarity with the poor, the marginalized, the oppressed, and the voiceless. When it's a question of, do I maintain the status quo by doing nothing, or even actively trying to keep it in place, or fighting for social change, which side am I on? Very basically, something wrong, something right. Which side are we going to choose to be on? I firmly believe that we need to be unapologetic and bold to create progressive change in our nation. It really got synthesized for me back in 1997. I was an assistant coach at St. John's University with the men's soccer team. We were the NCAA Division I defending national champions. While I was coaching at St. John's, I was also doing a graduate degree in theology. And I started writing a paper. Warning, be really careful about the research paper topics that you choose. I started doing a paper about Nike's labor practices in light of what's called Catholic social teaching. And what I found was if you wanted to pick a company that completely violated everything we claim to stand for as a Catholic university, Nike was it. And at the same time I was learning this, St. John's University Athletic Department was negotiating a $3.5 million endorsement contract with Nike. And part of that deal, I had to wear and promote their products. I tried to negotiate myself out of the deal behind the scenes for about a year. And then I took a public stand and I said I will not be a walking advertisement for a company that is exploiting mostly poor women of color in developing countries around the world. And I was told, you wear Nike and drop this or get out. I held my ground. I was forced to resign. I became and still am the only athlete in the world to say no to Nike on the sweatshop issue in one of their endorsement deals. And I started getting invited to college campuses by students just like you to talk about this issue. And I had critics in those early audiences, those market fundamentalists telling me I didn't know what I was talking about. Those were great jobs for those poor people. What else would they be doing if Nike wasn't there? I knew from my research and my travel around the world they were wrong. The competitor in me, the athlete, wanted to prove them wrong. So in the summer of 2000, I moved to Tangerang, Indonesia. And I went to go live with Nike factory workers. Went to go live on their wages, $1.25 a day. I lost 25 pounds in 1 month living on a Nike sweatshop wage, sleeping in a rat-infested cement slum. And I met these young women who made the stuff that as an athlete I wore my whole life. And I never thought twice about who they were and what their lives were like. And I promised them I would continue to advocate for them. And I came home and I was doing that advocacy. I thought I was going to do like a 6 or 7 week college tour. The first year I was on the road for 7 months. I spoke at 80 schools. For 14 years, I went back and forth to Indonesia, doing advocacy work here, doing advocacy work there, until on this day, May 1st, May Day, International Workers' Day of 2014, because I had helped to organize a demonstration with some of these workers at Nike's corporate headquarters in Jakarta the day before, I was arrested, picked up by the immigration police, detained, questioned for 2 days, deported, and banned from the country. But I still continue to tell the stories of the workers, and it was through this experience, something that was literally touching my skin every day, and something that as an athlete I had never thought about. The analysis that I did, it drew me deeper and deeper in, and I started looking at other issues here in the United States through this bold progressive lens. Sometimes when you're a bold progressive, it means you're going to be ahead of the curve. Does everybody know who that guy is at the podium there? Yes. Do you remember when Governor Christie screamed at that guy to sit down and shut up? That was me. Now you clap now. On that day, the audience was clapping for Governor Christie. Right now, 85% of New Jersey residents are clapping and saying, thank God we got the worst governor in the history of governors out of our state. Right? But not then. That was ahead of the curve. And we won some major victories for Hurricane Sandy families through that exchange. Okay? Being ahead of the curve as a bold progressive. Right now, everybody's talking about gun violence, and we should. A little tip to the folks in our urban communities. This isn't new. When I was a city councilman in Asbury Park in 2006, we had 75 shootings and 6 murders within a year. We marched, but there was only a couple of dozen of us. And then white kids started getting shot. And everybody wants the world to stop, and it should. But it should have stopped in 2006 in Asbury as well. And this is part of the challenge of being a bold progressive. You may be well ahead of where the rest of society is at, but you've got to have the courage to stand in your convictions. How many people here believe in marriage equality? Marriage equality? Awesome. My guess is there isn't a hand that isn't up in the room. 2004, when I was running for city council in Asbury Park, I stood boldly for marriage equality. Asbury was one of the ground zero spots. Way ahead of the curve. Do you know how long it took President Obama to publicly support marriage equality? So remember, I took my stand in 2004. Take a guess on President Obama. 2011. Hillary Clinton? 2015. The reality didn't change, right? And this is why we, as bold progressives, are so important in our political landscape, because we see it so clearly. And we have the courage to step into the breach. Sometimes you have to take personal risks, maybe financial risks. We had a situation, how many people here like beer? Okay, these are the guys that drive your beer to the bar or the liquor store. They're the drivers, the teamsters from Shore Point Distributors. They got locked out of their jobs one Friday afternoon. My family has happened to own a tavern for the last 36 years in Ocean County, New Jersey. Lighthouse Tavern, Route 9 in Waretown, come on in. I was the first bar owner in the state of New Jersey to stand in solidarity with the Teamsters. Refused to sell any Miller or Coors products for 6 weeks until they got back to the bargaining table and won the contract that they deserved. May not seem like a big deal, but if any of you have ever worked in a bar, try telling your regular who loves their Miller Lite bottle every afternoon when they get off work that they can't drink it for 6 weeks. All right, so these are those risks, sometimes small, sometimes large, that we have to take. Sometimes you have to be willing to go against the grain. I'm a Catholic, went to Catholic school for 18 years. I hold a graduate degree with distinction in theology from St. John's University. I taught religion at St. Rose in Belmar, St. John Vianney in Homedale, and St. Francis Prep in Queens. I also firmly believe in a woman's right to autonomy over her body and her right to choose her reproductive choices. Sometimes, as a bold progressive, we need to be willing to go to the front lines of a crisis. Sometimes that's overseas. We've heard of the Syrian refugee crisis. You saw the rafts coming across the Aegean Sea to Europe. That's one of them. I went there because our big bad governor at the time, Governor Christie, had said he didn't even want 5-year-old Syrian orphans coming to the United States. And I wanted to see what he was afraid of. Having held some of those young Syrian children in my hands, we don't need to be afraid of them. These are the kinds of actions that it takes for us to move the dialogue, for us to move policy. And we need more people who are willing to stand up and do this. And sometimes the front lines isn't overseas. It's right here. When elected officials all the way up to the White House ratchet up xenophobia, Islamophobia, homophobia, misogyny. And particularly, and I say this to my straight, white, cisgendered, able-bodied male brethren, we need to stand in the breach. And stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters who are being beaten up by the rhetoric, or sometimes literally being beaten up. We got to stay in this for the long haul. Using gun violence as an example. Right? The Moms Demand Action, those moms and dads are doing amazing work. The kids who mobilized after Parkland right here in New Jersey, this is in Freehold. And this was just a small part of it. I've never seen anything like it. 400 kids outside of Congressman Smith's office demanding action on gun violence. Here's the thing. It's not going to change overnight. It's not going to change from one demonstration. So if you feel yourself aligned with these bold progressive values, you got to know we are in it for the long haul. And we've got to work at this stuff every single day. So some of the skills that we need to have, we need to be able to listen with empathetic ears and empathetic hearts. This was down in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. This was in Serang, Indonesia. We listen, we learn, we don't judge, we try to understand. And then we figure out how we can best tell the stories and change the structures to eliminate the injustices that we just documented through our empathetic listening. And then we need to be ready to get out and do our educating, our organizing, and our acting to build grassroots power. That may be having the opportunity like this to speak in front of a few hundred students and talk about a particular campaign or a range of issues. It might be going to a demonstration, and whether you got the bullhorn or you're standing in the back, just being there, boots in the street, bodies visible, letting the people who are maintaining the status quo know that we will stand up and we will speak out. It's one-on-one organizing. I met with some environmental activists here during one of the breaks, and I said to them, and when you go out to organize, don't start with the issue. Hi, the climate's going crazy. We got to change everything. We need you on board. What did I do wrong there? What's your name? Jorge. Start with that, right? With the individual organizing. What's your name? Where are you from? How many brothers and sisters? What do you care about? We have to connect person to person before we get into the issues. And sometimes, and again, I say this for my straight, white, cisgender, able-bodied men, sometimes it means passing the mic and just literally standing in solidarity with the voices that are not always heard in our society. Like those snaps. And then we got to have the courage to raise hell and be strong voices for the voiceless. That may be taking on a bullying, bloviating governor. It may be standing up to one of the most powerful corporations in the world. It might be, if you get the opportunity, going on TV and speaking in front of millions of people about the issue that you're passionate about. It may be just channeling your inner Jedi and getting in the resistance and showing up at your congressperson's office every week. We need you. How many people are feeling, yeah, I want to be a part of a bold, unapologetic, progressive movement in this country? Who's feeling that? We need you. We need you on the Green New Deal. Right? We need you marching in New Jersey. We need you marching in Washington, D.C. You have brothers and sisters that are out there doing it. You see this guy? Does anybody know who he is? Alex, yes, he's awesome. Alex is a Rutgers alum. I helped Alex and a young woman, Summer, start the Sunrise Jersey Shore Hub. We meet Monday nights at Surf Taco in Belmar, 7 o'clock. We want to start a hub here at Rutgers. Okay? Alex got arrested last week. That's what that picture is. He went down to Senator McConnell's office. He put skin in the game. How many of us believe that climate change is real and we got a crisis? Yeah. How many of you have been arrested for it? We got to put skin in the game. Medicare for all. We need you. Who believes that health care is a human right? How many of you are aware of the fact that 9 days ago there was a Medicare for all barnstorming event right here on Rutgers campus? We need you. We need you grabbing clipboards, knocking on doors. I assume every one of you wants to have health care when you get out of college. Right? Yes. This is the way we go. Bold, progressive. Don't apologize for it. We deserve it. Those are just two of the big issues. We've also got campaign finance reform. Tuition-free college, anyone? Income inequality, a $15 minimum wage, criminal justice reform, legalizing marijuana, deal with the opioid crisis, immigration reform, rebuilding our infrastructure, deconstructing the military-industrial complex. We want to do all these things boldly and unapologetically every single day. Say it with me. Every single day. Now, we also need you for 2020. Because elections matter. Are we seeing that this week with the hearings that are going on, Mr. Cohen? Elections matter. I don't think it will be a surprise to you who I am supporting in this go-around. Now, I was in the 3% of Americans who knew who Bernie was before he announced in 2015. I met Senator Sanders back in 2001 when he was the keynote and I was the featured presenter at a conference on labor rights for 8th graders in Brattleboro, Vermont. And the same things that Bernie is hammering away on right now, he was hammering away on with those 8th graders 18 years ago. And that's why I love him. That's why I marched in the streets here in New Jersey. This is Hoboken. I got my Irish sneer on right there, right? That's why I proudly served as a delegate for Senator Sanders at the Democratic National Convention in 2016. It's why I hope and pray he chooses Stacey Abrams as his vice presidential candidate. Pray with me on that one. This is about a movement, an unapologetically bold progressive movement, and it's going down. While we were here, this was what was going on in Brooklyn today. Thousands and thousands, mostly young people just like you, standing up, speaking out, saying we deserve Medicare for all, we deserve a Green New Deal, we deserve a jobs guarantee, we deserve affordable housing. How many of you are with me on this? And can I just see where our Rutgers students are at? Hands up. Awesome. A deal. When's your next meeting?
We meet Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Although this Tuesday we're not meeting. Next week we are meeting. So,
What's the name of the group?
Are you progressive? So what's next week?
Find him after this talk. Get to that meeting.
March 12th. Look up Are You Progressive on all of our social media. All right, we're there. Thank you.
You got it. All right. So I'm going to wrap it with this because it's already turned 0-0 red and they're going to pull me off the stage in a second. Only 1% of the world has access to a college education every year. Wow, right? 1%. That puts you in the global elite. Now, you may not feel elite when you're jonesing for money on a Saturday night for beer and pizza, but the fact that you will eat 3 meals today if you so choose, that you have warm, dry clothes on your back, you have a safe place to sleep tonight, and you are getting an education at the premier public university in the great state of New Jersey, puts you so far ahead of the other 99% of the people on this planet that I would argue that you have a moral responsibility to them to use your gifts, your talents, your passion, and this education that you're getting to make your mark in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, to go out these doors, back out onto this campus, around our state, around the nation, and around the world, and use your life to make a difference. Thank you very much. So keeps jumping. That's where you can get me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and email. Thank you.